So today is Bereshit, which is Genesis 1. This week, I began reading in English, to prepare, but I wanted to see it again in the Hebrew. So I did that, then I had a notion for this teaching to read and explain the Hebrew of the first part of the Bible. So that's the plan. Teresa has handouts. Let's go ahead and do that now. And if you don't already have this is the first page of the Hebrew Bible, along with the first page of the English. And she made a bunch of copies. And even, if you do read Hebrew, you can read along. If you don't, you can kind of guess at it, but yeah, you'll have to learn how to do it. Like, I know Carissa doesn't really know the alphabet very well, but that's okay. So I'm going to overbearingly talk about the Hebrew for a while, but it won't be all that. So we'll get through this, and hopefully it'll be uplifting to you. Did Jill get one? Okay. Everybody? Okay, so the Hebrew Tanakh that I read out of, that this is a copy of the first page. The Hebrew Tanakh that I read out of is called the Stone Edition Tanakh. Stone Edition, and they have different sizes you can buy. They have a miniature size or the big size. I bought the big size, and I like it because the printing is fairly large, so you can read it. And with my eyes, it's helpful to have big print. The English translation in that Bible is not my favorite because there's many places where the Talmudic thought overshadows the literal translation. And it happens quite a bit. So I'm not always real fond of the English. However, the English is nice overall because it tends to follow the Hebrew. They tried to make it so that it would be helpful to the reader of the Hebrew to go back and see the English and understand where we are. So, and it does tend to follow it pretty well. So the phrasing, it makes it nice to keep tabs on what you're reading in the Hebrew for the beginning reader. And so you have like the Hebrew on the right side, the English on the left, and you try to read the Hebrew, and then you look back at the English and you say, oh, okay, that's what they're saying. But because I've been reading it, little by little for, over 10 years, I guess now, I'm beginning, like when I'm reading Samuel, I can read most of the words without looking to the English, which is pretty nice. It's pretty sweet to just be able to roll through. But like if I was in Isaiah, forget about it. I can't. Or the Psalms are difficult. Gary knows. Yeah, right? So, but I'm still a beginner in Hebrew. I will share with you a few of my insights as we go along, but keep in mind that I am not one of those Bible experts. I do have, however, over 50 years of biblical experience, and I have sat under many quite good Bible teachers. I am certainly no Hebrew expert, but I have read the entire Tanakh and many parts of it multiple times. So, in Hebrew, a big part of understanding the language is to recognize root words. I was talking to her about this the other day. This is because the root words are changed in many ways to express things differently. In every word, you have the possibility of past, present, and future tenses. You have all the different pronoun forms, such as I, you, him, her, them, y'all, and all that. And they are generally represented in the word itself, not separately. In Hebrew, instead of having words like the, or in, or to, separate, the way they are in English, in Hebrew, they're part of the word, usually at the beginning. Because, for example, like lamed is to, bet is in, or in, if a bet is at the beginning of a word and it's just a short bet, it's a in. But if it's like ba, mead, bar, Ba is in the, so in the wilderness. That's how that works. Midbar being wilderness, ba is in the. If it was Bamidbar, it'd be in wilderness. So it's just how it works. There's also a thing in Hebrew called binyamin, binyanim, I almost mispronounced, which means little boxes. And that's talking about the little boxes that the words fit in. These are verb cases. They take a root word, a verb, and change it into different forms, such as simple active, like run, or simple passive, like he had run, or I don't know, so whatever that is. Reflexive, which means back on oneself. Causative forms, which is acting on something, and intensive forms, which is intensive. These forms can actually change the meaning of the original word. For example, katav in Hebrew means write, as in writing a word on a page. But in its intensive form, kitev, katav, kitev, it means to carve, such as in carving a word in stone. So it's the same word, katav, but if you use the intensive form, it actually changes the meaning a little bit. So that's Hebrew. So every Hebrew word can have like over 30 different forms. There's a lot. And so it's a very big language to really learn all the nuances and stuff. So it'll be a learning process for me for the rest of my life. And I've never sat under somebody that was a total big teacher and really showed me all the ins and outs. I just kind of picked it up little by little. So notice that the kitev is spelled and pronounced a little differently, but it is the same root word. So this is just to say that there's a lot to the Hebrew language. As I said, I'm no expert, but as just a normal guy with some experience in reading Hebrew, I will share with you the beginning of Genesis. So we begin at the beginning. Bereshit is the first word in the Bible. The root word of Bereshit is Rosh. Rosh means head, or first, or beginning. But the basic meaning of Rosh is head. So, for example, Rosh Hashanah is the head or the beginning of the year. So Shana is the year, Ha is the Rosh Hashanah, head of the year, So the B at the beginning of Bereshit means in, like I was just talking about. Not in the, but, if it was in the, it would be ba, but it's but, so I don't know. And the form of the word Reshit, rather than Rosh, it means beginning. So Bereshit means in the beginning. And everybody kind of knew that anyway, but there it is. The next word, bara, means created. This is the simplest form of that word, bara. Past tense, singular, masculine. That's as basic as you can get with a Hebrew verb. Bereshit bara. In the beginning, created Elohim. We know this word. El is the beginning of Elohim, and that also means God in the Hebrew. And you will see El in the scripture occasionally, but it's not real common. It's almost always Elohim if you're going to say that, which is plural. Like the im ending is a plural ending. I don't know all the ins and outs of that word Elohim, but suffice it to say that God is magnificent, multifaceted, and complex, right? To use a plural word to refer to him is appropriate, even though we know from the Shema that God is one. So it's interesting. So Bereshit bara Elohim. In the beginning created God, the heavens and the earth. But the very next word is not the heavens, but the word et. Et hashamayim. Et is a word that is uniquely Hebrew. It is called the direct object identifier, which means that every time you see et, it is pointing very specifically at the object of the previous verb. Bereshit bara Elohim et. What did he create? Et hashamayim ve et haaretz. So it's saying very specifically, the heavens and the earth. It is also spelled Aleph Tav, the first and the last letters of the Hebrew alphabet. Many people have gone into that and said that it refers to Yeshua because he said himself that he is the Aleph and the Tav, the first and the last. So they're saying that that's him in the first verse, and maybe they're right, I don't know. I'm not so sure about the significance of that in Genesis 1:1, so I'll just leave it alone. I'm not saying plus or minus either way, but I'll just deal with the et word grammatically. Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et ha'aretz. God created exactly the heavens, et hashamayim, and exactly the earth, et ha'aretz. When it says ve'et, the ve means here, the ve means and here. Ve'et, and exactly. So ha means the, like ha shamayim, means the shamayim, the heavens. And aretz means earth or world. Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et ha'aretz. These are the first 7 words of the Bible, and they say a lot. They set the entire Bible on a firm foundation and say things that every human being needs to understand. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Aretz. There's another word in Hebrew which is used for the ground instead of the earth, and that word is adamah. Like if you look over a field and it's all plowed up and you say, that's the adamah out there, that's the ground, that's the dirt. The root word of adamah is adam, which means red. And that's also where Adam or man came from. So you use the same word Adam that means red. It also is Adamah, which means dirt, and that's the name for man or mankind. So that's kind of interesting, right? Yeah, and Aretz is earth or world. God is choosing his words carefully in the Bible to communicate exactly what he wants to say. Note here that God does not begin the Bible with an argument for believing in his existence. Did you ever think about that? Well, you should believe in God because blah, 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 Well, that's not how he does it. He just starts out and he just says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. So it's assumed. The existence of God is assumed. God knows that if a human being is honest, he or she can see God in all aspects of his creation. It says so right there in Romans chapter 1. For the invisible things of him, from the creation of the world, are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, which includes us, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. You can't get by and say, oh, well, I never knew. No. Just look at the stars. Look at a leaf on a tree, for crying out loud. That's one thing that happened to me as a young child. My vision, I was like 6, 7 years old, was excellent. I looked up at the light showing through a fresh leaf in springtime on a tree in our front yard. The sun was bright. It's, Denver, Colorado, it's bright out there. The sun was bright and I could see the cells, I could see the veins, I could sense the very life of that tree in that leaf. And all it was just a leaf. The magnificence of a simple leaf, if you look closely at it, indicates the existence and presence of its creator. It takes an evil spirit and a wrong mind to declare that God does not exist. Just saying. And that we are, and that God does not exist and that we are bleakly alone in this vast universe. No, we are not alone. God created us. He is here with us. But first of all, God created the heavens and the earth. The next phrase in Genesis is, Ve haaretz haita tohu vavohu. And the translation is, and the earth was or became without form and void. That word haita can be translated was or became. And I believe it means became. The heavens and the earth became tohu vavohu, without form and void. And I believe that because of Isaiah 45:18. And Isaiah 45:18 says, "For this is what Yahweh says, who created the heavens, the God who formed the earth and made it, who established it and did not create it tohu." He did not create it tohu. It's the English says a waste, but the Hebrew says, God who formed the earth and made it, who established it and did not create it tohu, who formed it to be inhabited. I am Yahweh, and there is no other. That's Isaiah 45:18. So it says right there, he did not create it tohu, therefore it must have somehow became tohu. Tohu is like bleak and empty, without form. No, he created it to be inhabited. He is Yahweh, and there is no other. Isaiah said so. We know the character of God, right? This God of all light, love, clarity, and goodness would not create the world this way. He would not create it tohu. No, he would not. So if he did not create it tohu, that means it must have in some way gotten that way. Tohu vavohu is a figure of speech, I think. The words are not identical, but they are so similar and sound the same that when you read them or say them, they sound powerful. Tohu vavohu. They mean without form and void. But it's like a double stamp there to show you just how bleak and dark and empty the creation had become. In my understanding, this tohu vavohu took place after the fall of Satan, or Hasatan. Hasatan means the accuser or the adversary. If you know the story from the Bible, there was a rebellion in heaven that the Hasatan did against God. I believe he tried to take out God in this rebellion, or take over. He says, "No, I want to be in charge." Isaiah chapter 14, verse 12. "How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. Yet thou shalt be brought down to hell, to the sides of the pit." That's what Isaiah says. He really thought, Hasatan did, that he himself should be in charge instead of God. Really? He thought he could be like Elyon, the Most High. How ridiculous is that? He is a created being, and God is God. But that is how pride works, isn't it? We've seen the way pride works in ourselves and in others. It's not a good thing. Whenever we recognize pride in ourselves, it would be a good idea to repent and stop it immediately. Right? Proverbs 16:18 says, "Pride goeth before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall." And this is what the accuser tried to do, or he tried to render God ineffective, or at least destroy God's creation. The aftermath of his pride was the fall, right? The aftermath is what we are now dealing with, the tohu vavohu. At least that's what makes sense to me. The Bible doesn't actually say this, but I'm just saying what kind of makes sense to me. So I believe this tohu vavohu in Genesis is after his fall. And the next phrase is, "Vechoshech al panei tahom." Choshech is darkness. Al panei is on the face of, and tahom is the deep. And darkness was on the face of the deep. And the next phrase is, Ve'ruach Elohim merachefet al panei hamayim. And the spirit of Elohim hovered or brooded like a hen over her chicks on the face of the waters. So there's the dark waters and the total tohu vavohu mess, and here's God over there hovering, saying, okay, what do we got here? And this is where God begins to put things back in order after the cataclysm. He's hovering, brooding. Then the next words are, then Vayomer Elohim Yehi Or, and said Elohim, let there be light. And note it doesn't say he created light here. That happened in verse 1. But in bringing things back into order, the first thing God says is, let there be light. That's a basic first step, but so important. God knows what he is doing. The next phrase after Yehi Or is, Vayehi Or. And God said, let there be light, and there was light. Yehi Or, Vayehi Or. Vayar Elohim et haor kitov. And Yahweh saw et, specifically, the light, that it was good. Kitov. Vayavdel Elohim bein haor uvein hachoshech. And God separated. Yavdel means separated. We see the same root word in the word havdalah. Yavdel, havdalah, where we separate the Shabbat from the rest of the week on Saturday night. Vayavdel Elohim bein haor uvein hachoshech. And separated Elohim, bein is between, haor, the light, uvein, and between, hachoshech, the darkness. What a great word for darkness, choshech. To me, it just sounds like it, choshech. God separated the light from the darkness. This has overtones like crazy, but it's also simply light versus darkness. It's important for us as believers to separate as well. As a young believer, one time I had a vision or a dream, and it was brief, but it was significant. It was important. This vision was significant and powerful to me, but very simple. The vision was this. It was as if I were floating out there in space, all by myself. And all around me, there was like a cloudy, misty kind of light. There was also darkness. But the light was mixed with darkness. Otherwise, it would have been brighter. And when I saw this vision, I knew exactly what it meant. Yeshua was showing me that I was allowing the darkness of the world to mix with the light that was in me. I knew from this that I needed to change. I knew that I needed to be throwing off the things of darkness, of the flesh, and going closer to the light, to God, and to his ways. So, over a period of time, I did pursue that, and I did succeed, at least somewhat. But this kind of thing does not just go away. It's a lifetime pursuit. It's what we're always involved in. But we got to keep in mind that we do not want the light mixed with darkness. And that was based, this vision came from a statement by Yeshua in the book of Matthew in chapter 6. And starting in verse 9, he says, lay not up for yourselves treasures upon the earth, where moth and rust doth corrupt, and where thieves break through and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust doth corrupt, where thieves do not break through nor steal. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. The light of the body is the eye. If therefore thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light. But if thine eye be evil, thy whole body shall be full of darkness. If therefore the light that is in thee be darkness, how great is that darkness? That was the warning that God was showing me in that vision. That's where that vision came from. But continuing, Yeshua continues, no man can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will hold to the one and despise the other. Ye cannot serve God and mammon. We must decide whom we serve. It's, God or the flesh, God or the lusts of this world. You can't serve both. Therefore I say unto you, take no thought for your life, what ye shall eat, or what ye shall drink, nor yet for your body, what ye shall put on. Is not the life more than meat, and the body than raiment? Behold the fowls of the air, for they sow not, neither do they reap, nor gather into barns, yet your heavenly Father feedeth them. Are ye not much better than they? Which of you, by taking thought, can add 1 cubit unto his stature? And why take ye thought for raiment? Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They toil not, neither do they spin. And yet I say unto you, that even Solomon, in all his glory, was not arrayed like one of these. What a statement. Wherefore, if God so clothe the grass of the field, which today is, and tomorrow is cast into the oven, shall he not much more clothe you, O ye of little faith? God, this resonates so hard with me, because it's some of the earliest learning I had as a believer. And it's just such powerful words. So, but Romans, continue with the darkness and light thing. Romans 13, verse 12. The night is far spent. The day is at hand. Let us therefore cast off the works of darkness, and let us put on the armor of light. Ephesians 5:11. And have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather reprove them. That's our job. 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 14. Be ye not unequally yoked together with unbelievers. For what fellowship hath righteousness with unrighteousness? And what communion hath light with darkness? We separate from the darkness, we cling to God who is light. Separating and clinging is part of righteous living. The world is constantly trying to woo us into its darkness. Actually, this is the enemy, Hasatan, the accuser, trying to do this to us. He will do anything to try to make us less effective or ineffective for God. We must resist him. James chapter 4, verse 6 says, therefore it says, God resists the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Therefore, submit to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Draw near to God, and he will draw near to you. Cleanse your hands, you sinners. Purify your hearts, you double-minded. Lament, mourn, and weep. Let your laughter be turned into mourning, and your joy to gloom. Humble yourself in the sight of the Lord, and he will exalt you. Man, that's how James, or Jacob, the brother of Yeshua, says to do it. We do well to listen to him. So, to finish off this first section in Genesis, we continue. Vayikra, and called Elohim, Laor, or to the light, Yom, or day. Ve'lachoshech kara Laila, and to the darkness he called night. Vayehi Erev, Vayehi Boker, Yom Echad. And there was Erev, or evening, and there was Boker, or morning, Yom Echad, or day one. Yom is day, Echad is one, so it's basically saying Yom Echad, day one. It's usually translated one day or the first day, but literally it is day one. So one could spend a long time just looking at the simple language of those, even just those first few beginning verses in Genesis, and see more and more. God is a master of saying things without always explaining. But if we look carefully, there are many times explanations, especially when we are familiar with the whole of Scripture. God will illuminate our minds to see his truths if we seek them honestly and if we delight in his ways. So I'll continue with Genesis. Verse 6 reads, "And God said, let there be an expanse in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters." The Hebrew reads, "Vayomer Elohim, Yehi rakia b'toch hamayim." And said Elohim, let there be a rakia, a firmament, a space, b'toch hamayim, in the midst of the waters. That word rakia always sounds to me like something you could build with 2x4s. Rakia. Let's go out there and backyard and build us a rakia, okay? But that's not it at all, okay? It is space, the final frontier. Right? It is very large space and very empty. Remember, God has not yet made the sun or the moon or the stars. Miles and miles, light years upon light years of space. In the midst, that's the rakia. In the midst of the waters is where it is. Again, with the separating. First he separates light from darkness, this time separating waters from waters. Vayehi mavdil bein mayim lamayim. And let the rakia be a separator, a mavdil, the Havdalah word again, by the way, between mayim and mayim, water to water. Vaya'as, and made Elohim et harakia, specifically the rakia, specifically the expanse. Vayavdel, and separated bein hamayim mitachat rakia, between the mayim, or the water that was from underneath the rakia, or expanse, uvein hamayim asher me'al la rakia, and between the water that was above the rakia. Vayehi Cain, and it was so. Vayikra Elohim, and called Elohim, la rakia, to the expanse. Shamayim, he says. You're going to call you Shamayim. That means heaven. Vayehi Erev, Vayehi Boker, Yom Shani. And there was Erev, or evening, and there was morning, Boker, Yom Shani, day 2. So now we have this expanse, and God just called it heaven. So the way I understand these verses, I believe that on the outside of the universe, there's water. That's what I think. It's most likely ice because it's cold out there. But if I'm reading this correctly, I think it's there. But it's a long, long ways off. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's the way I see it. Someone said one time in a teaching that I heard that, he said, well, if there's water down here and there's a separation and there's water up there, I don't expect to find water anywhere in between. And that's probably a logical conclusion. There's no water on the moon that we've ever seen. There's no water on Mars that we've ever seen. So they say that there was evidence of water on Mars, but I don't see any water now. So that's just a side thought. So Genesis 1:9, and God said, let the waters under the heavens be gathered together to one place, and let the dry land appear. And it was so. Vayomer, and said Elohim, Yikavu, let be gathered, Hamayim, the waters, Mitachat, from under, Hashamayim, the heavens, under the rakia, remember? El Makom Echad, to one place. Makom is place, Echad is one. Va Tera'eh, and let appear Hayabasha, which is a weird word, the dry land. He doesn't say Aretz, he says Yabasha. But that's because it's as opposed to underneath all this water. Now let's see some dry land, Yabasha. Vayehi Cain, and it was so. Vayikra, and called Elohim la Yabasha, to the dry land, Eretz, which means earth or world or land. Lamikveh, and to the gathering of Hamayim, the waters, kara, called, Yamim, that's seas. Vayar, and saw, Elohim, kitov, that it was good. Vayomer, and said Elohim, Tad she haaretz deshe. That's the next thing we're getting to. This Tad she haaretz deshe, this phrase is powerful in the Hebrew. Tad she haaretz deshe. Tad she and deshe are different forms of the same root word. You can kind of hear it. The root word is deshe, and in the lexicon, it is defined as be green, like pastures. Let sprout, new fresh grass after a rain, greenness or vegetation. It's kind of like saying, let's green the earth with green grass and vegetation. It's very green, a lot of green going on there with deshe and tadshe haaretz deshe. The two green words there really emphasize that God is making the earth green. Let the earth sprout vegetation. But it's powerful, you see. Tadshe haaretz deshe. The next phrase is powerful too. Esev, mizriah zera. Esev is grass. Zera is seed. But the way it says it is like grass, which is seeding seed. Esev, mazriah zera. It's strong. Then we have another one. Etz pri ose pri. Etz is a tree. Pri is fruit. In English, it's fruit tree making fruit. It's another powerful phrase. Etz pri ose pri. Fruit tree making fruit. The next word is lemino, after its kind. Then asher zaro bo. Zera is seed, so in which the seed goes. So let's have the fruit tree making fruit after its kind, bearing fruit in which the seed goes. Referring back to the fruit of the tree. Then, al haaretz vayehi came. So all this is happening on the earth. Al haaretz. And it was so, vayehi came. Now we see the result. Vatotsei, and brought forth haaretz, the land, deshe, pastures of green after a shower, esev, grass, mazriah zera, seeding seed, leminehu, after their kind, ve'etz, and trees, ose pri, making fruit, asher zaro bo, in which where the seed goes, leminehu, after their kind, vayar, and saw, Elohim, kitov, that it was good, vayehi erev, vayehi boker, yom shlishi, and there was evening and there was morning, day 3. Okay, I hope that was not too much Hebrew for you, but the Hebrew is so rich, and I thought it would be nice for us to kind of plow through a little bit of that. But now I thought it might be nice to shift gears and just talk about some of the concepts and thoughts about the next section of verses here in Genesis, staying mostly in English. So in verse 14, where we have come to, and God said, let there be lights in the expanse of the heavens, in the rakia of Hashemayim, by the way. Isn't that a nice, once you know what rakia is in Hashemayim, it says, let there be lights in the rakia of Hashemayim. It's nice. To divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs, to mark seasons, for days and years, and let them be for lights in the expanse of the heavens, to give light upon the earth. And it was so. God made the two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He also made the stars. Ve'et ha'chochavim. Chochavim are stars. But that's the way the whole phrase is. Ve'et chochavim. And the stars. God set them in the expanse of the heavens to give light upon the earth and to rule over memshelet, like is the kingdom, the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. God saw that it was good, and there was evening and there was morning, a 4th day. So that's day 4. So this is the whole section of the 4th day. Note with the lights in the rakia of Hashemayim that there are reasons for them. First is to divide or separate, again, the day from the night. Secondly, they are to mark the seasons, which are Moedim in the Hebrew. And the Moedim later in the Bible are all the Moedim, the Passover and Sukkot and all that. So the lights in the sky are to mark the Moedim. But it's possibly more than just God's own Moedim. It's other things too, maybe. I don't know. But they are to mark Moedim, which are God's feasts. They are to mark days and years. And third, they are to be lights in the Rakia Hashemayim, to give light on the earth. That's why they're there, to give light on the earth. So then we have the identification of the sun and the moon. The sun to rule by day, the moon to rule by night. Oh, and by the way, he made the stars also. The stars also. Have you ever looked at the stars on a clear night in the desert away from the lights of a city? I have. There's colors, man. You look at that Milky Way, it's spectacular. It just would slay you. They are beyond magnificent. There's colors up in the Milky Way. Oh, yes. By the way, he made the stars also. What an understatement. The other thing I think about here is that the relative size of the sun and the moon to a viewer on the earth is almost exactly the same. This is not by accident. God did this. Because of this, we can occasionally see a perfect eclipse of the sun. If it wasn't that way, we would never see a perfect eclipse. If the moon was visually too small or too big, it wouldn't work. But the way it is, it's perfect. So that's extraordinary. If the sun and the moon were a different size visually, it would never happen. How can someone who doesn't believe in God think that they just accidentally happened that way? There's no way. This is not good critical thinking. I'm just saying it's not. The probability of that happening naturally is so small, you might as well forget about it. It's never going to happen all by itself accidentally. But God made them that way. They are for lights for the earth. So, good critical thinking, even if from just a completely human perspective, should allow for the existence of God. That's what I'm saying. Because the evidence is everywhere, like the leaf on the tree. But that's not, or the stars in the sky. But that's not how modern science works. Modern science starts from a postulate of saying that the first thing is that there is no God. Then we figure out things from here. We're going to figure everything out ourselves. So that is illogical and wrong. God made everything, not evolution and not the Big Bang. 1 Corinthians chapter 1. Where is the wise? Where is the scribe? Where is the Torah scholar of this world? Has not God made foolish the wisdom of this world? Foreseeing that in the wisdom of God, the world, through its wisdom, did not know God, it pleased God, through the foolishness of the proclaiming, to save those who believe. For Jews ask for signs, Greeks seek after wisdom, but we proclaim Messiah, crucified, a stumbling block to the Jews and foolishness to the Greeks, but to those who are called, both Jews and Greeks, Messiah is the power of God and the wisdom of God. Amen. Because the foolishness of God is wiser than men, and the weakness of God is stronger than men. 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 13. We also speak these things, not in words which man's wisdom teaches, but which the Ruach HaKodesh teaches, Holy Spirit, comparing spiritual things with spiritual things. Now the natural man does not receive things of the Ruach Elohim, the Spirit of God, for they are foolishness to him, and he cannot know them because they are spiritually discerned. But he who is spiritual judges all things, and he himself is judged by no one. For who has known the mind of Yahweh, that he should instruct him. But we have the mind of Messiah. 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 18. Let no one deceive himself. If anyone thinks that he is wise among you in this world, let him become a fool, that he may become wise. So you have to get broke before you can let God build you back up, right? And I would suspect that pretty much everybody in this room has been through that at least once or twice. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so verse 19. For the wisdom of this world is foolishness with God. Foolishness. For it is written, he has taken the wise in their craftiness. And again, Yahweh knows the thoughts of the wise, that they are futile. I wanted to finish at least the 7 days of creation, but I ran out of time. I got distracted by all the other stuff. So, but you'll just have to read and ponder yourself. I will conclude with the words of the preacher from the very end of the book of Ecclesiastes, one of my favorites. This is one of my favorite sections in the whole Bible. Further, because the preacher was wise, he still taught people knowledge. Yes, he pondered, sought out, and set in order many proverbs. Kohelet sought to find out acceptable words, and that which was written blamelessly, words of truth. The words of the wise are like goads, and like nails well fastened are words from the master of assemblies, which are given from one shepherd. What a statement. Verse 12. Further, my son, be admonished. Of making many books there is no end, and much study is weariness of the flesh. Remember in one of the Gospels it says, I suppose that if the world could not contain all the books that could have been written about Yeshua. Verse 14, this is the end of the matter. Everything has been heard. Fear God and keep his mitzvot, his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For God will bring every work into judgment, including every hidden thing, whether it is good or whether it is evil. And that's it. Shabbat shalom. Thank you.